Shaq could have me.
Okay.
It wasn't scary.
No, it was too much. It was too many spirits going around. I don't play with stuff like that.
That's the
It
reason.
made my soul feel uncomfortable. So
All right.
All right, here we go. We're going to do, on the back of page 58, we're going to do problem H. We have
I'm
not
confident about my
done
money.
problem H.
Give me my $2.
No, he's too big to be jumping around.
No, you not. You not.
So let's see what we remember. We need to find the center. We need to find the vertices. We need to find the transverse axis, the conjugate axis, and the equations of the asymptotes. All right, so here we go. So look at that hyperbola. What can you tell me about the center?
Center is -1.
-1, right there you go. There's your center. So you will fill in -1, -1 in the blank on the test that says center. Oh, well, that's what I thought. Thank you. Is that why you were looking at me weird?
Yeah.
It was a little bit unusual today. There you go. -1, Thank you. That could have been deadly. All right. Now what? I need my box.
Yep.
Build the box. What does this tell me to do?
Go up for it.
That one tells me to go up 4. So
Sideways.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that one tells me to
They
go
got a picture of it.
sideways 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm gonna build a box through those points, a rectangle. Actually, this one is a square, isn't it? Ah. And then I will draw in my asymptotes. Now, I need to draw my curve. Will this be one that's opening up and down, or will this be one that's opening sideways? Sideways. How do I know? X comes first. So each of these shapes have their own little subset of rules. For the hyperbola, whatever letter comes first is the direction you open. So remember when you built the box? That dot right there is important. And this one's important. Those are my vertices. That's where my shape is starting. So there are 2 of them. I need to figure out what they are. You have graph paper, so you can just look at your points. I'm gonna go back and remember that I went sideways 4. So isn't that the point 3, -1? And then I went this way 4, so this would be the point -5, -1.
Yeah.
Now the transverse axis is the one that does what? Connects the orange dots, the vertices. So how long is this guy right here? This is your transverse axis. How long is it? And the conjugate axis is the other one. And he is also 8. This, you don't need to know this, but just FYI, that's called an equilateral hyperbola. Does that make sense to you? Equilateral, what does that mean? Same length? So we're going up and down and sideways the same amount, that's called equilateral hyperbola. Okay, now I need the equations of my asymptotes. Now they are going to be lines. To write the equation of a line, I need two things. I need a point and I need a slope. What point do I always use? No matter what, no matter which way my hyperbola opens, no matter what, I'm always going to use my center. And my center is -1, -1. Now, how do I find the slope? Does anybody remember that from last time? I need the number for the slope. How do I get the number? When you built the box, you started at the center and you counted up how many? 4. And over how many? So slope is rise over run. So your slope is 4 over 4 or 1. But remember, there's 2 asymptotes and they always have the same slope. One is positive and one is negative. So your slope is actually plus or minus 1. To make this as easy as possible for you, since we're kind of cramming all this in, when you write your equation, you are allowed to do this. We're going to do y minus -1 equals slope x minus -1. And you can just stop right there. You don't have to clean those up. You don't have to do anything. You can just stop right there. Those would be the equations of the asymptotes. Now, if you wanted to go ahead and do the distributive and all that stuff, you can. But just that's your point slope form. Just leave it like that. So y plus 1 equals m times x plus 1. That's it. All right, so starting to come back from yesterday, or last time a little bit. All right, let's look at F. We haven't done F yet. So take a second and get started on F and see what you can do with that one. No, if you want to know sideways, you take the square root of whatever's under x. X comes first. In the subtraction problem, 4 matters.
Yeah, I had
So
to
the
do 0,
first letter
0, 1,
is the fraction.
Center is 0, 1.
Okay, had a couple kids that come in this morning. I turned back some homework. Oh, by the way, I'll turn back yours too. I have some. And they missed some things, couldn't figure out what was going on, thought they knew what they were doing. And in both cases, the issue was the center was wrong. If you don't have your center in the right place, then when you start counting all around, it's all gonna be off. Be careful. Where did you put the center of this thing?
0,
1, 0. The center is at 1, 0. Why is the center at 1, 0? Because when I write an ordered pair, I don't care where you are, who you are, what you're doing, it doesn't matter. When you write an ordered pair, the first letter is X and the second letter is Y. No matter what order things are in the equation.
So I was because she said it's X.
All right, anybody besides Connor, which one?
hey, whatever floats the boat.
Wait, what are you talking about?
Both still.
She said since it was a X, well, but it's a Y, she considered the X over 1, comma 0. Because we kept saying 0, comma 0.
Oh, that's what I
Okay, so we all have our center at 1, 0. Are we okay with that?
It has to be,
Yep.
okay.
All right. Now, what does that 4 tell me to do?
Go up
Up 2
and down
and down 2. And then the 16 tells me to go
to right or left 4.
right and left 4. And then I can build my box through those points. Right?
Yeah, you told me that.
And then I can draw in my asymptotes.
How would say wrong? She sucks. You got 0, 1 is 1, 0.
Willow, you got a question? You okay?
You told me right here.
Willow, you got a question? You're
Yeah,
right.
I was saying how I had 0, 1, no, that's when I was 0, 1, 0. Are you, no, you still.
Which way does this open? Up and down, right, vertically? So I'm gonna go ahead and sketch it in. Now, as soon as I determine that that's how it opens, then these 2 points become important. Remember, when you built your box, you plotted 4 points, 2 this way, 2 this way. Not all of those are important. These 2 are the important ones because that's the way your hyperbola opens. Those are called the vertices. There's 2 of them. So you have a vertex at 1, comma 2, and at 1, comma negative 2. And those are your vertices.
There's that one coming.
Okay? Now, transverse axis. This is the transverse. Transverse joins the vertices. This word is transverse. Vertices. So I counted up and down 2. So therefore my transverse axis is 4. The other axis, that frankly all you used it for was to build the box, called the conjugate axis, you went back in for 4, so it is 8. Alright? Now we have to write the equation of the asymptotes. So we need a point and we need a slope in order to do that. What point are we going to use? 1, 0. Kids, if you don't use the center, then you absolutely are gonna have to write 2 separate equations, because that is the only point that's in both lines. There are other points you can use, but you have to be separate for each line, so it's easier just to use that one. Now, what's my slope? Well, think about it. When you built the box, what did you do? Count up, 2, and over 4. So your slope is plus or minus a half? 2/4? So you are allowed to write your equation one time, one equation, you have 2, but you're at one thing. Y minus 0 is plus or minus a half, x minus 1. You don't technically need the y minus 0, but I put it in to kind of keep,
You said we don't have to?
you don't have to put the 0 in there.
No, it literally is.
So it looks like all the rest of them.
That one's full.
No, I'm not shopping.
How do you know that?
Man.
You did right. You did right. Yeah. Yeah, we did.
Did I?
Okay? Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'd like you to look at part 2. On page 59, number 2.
Don't crash out.
Have we found
will you and your partner see if you can match the picture with the equation? Alright, so let's look at
How y'all
number
partner
2
with it?
and see if you can match the picture with the equation.
Alright. Okay, so that's 2. That's 3. That's 5. That's 4. That's 2. That's 4. This is 3. Okay. 4. She is. Okay, sure. Well, that's 5 and that's 4. 1, 2, yeah.
Oh wait, how do you?
Okay, no, I get it.
No. Wait. I don't know. Number 1 is. I think number 1 is B.
Is it B?
Because it's 5 and 4. Look.
B and C have to be either one.
You want.
B and C are one or two. Yes.
Yeah, this is 5 and 4.
But B cannot be. I think why because it starts at 20.
Why?
I think why no, look. This is 2. This is 2.
No, it's definitely
So
not. I
it
think
has to be 3 or 1. Could
Yes, it is.
What are a couple clues that the pictures have that help you match?
The origin.
The origin.
That you see where the origin is.
Yeah, you can kind of tell, first of all, which way they're opening, up and down or sideways, right? And then whether they are centered at the origin or not. So when you look, hopefully, at equations
Well,
A
X is
and B,
sideways. When X
you
come
know
first,
those
it's
are y
sideways.
squared first.
So 1 can't
Right?
be B. 1 is C.
How do I know A and B are y
Yeah,
squared
I was
first?
gonna give you a little credit.
Because they're opening up and down, right?
Y
Now,
opens
when you look at them, can you tell that A is not centered at the origin? A is
Two,
shifted
yeah.
over?
Yep.
But B is centered at the origin? So when you look at your
That's
equations,
2.
Y
when plane y squared is at the origin, so, picture B has gotta be number 3.
What?
Picture B is number 3.
What the hell?
And then picture A is
Is
number
number
2.
two.
Oh, okay, I was right. I was looking at the wrong one.
A is number 2.
Okay.
Because those are the y squared minus x
This is a 2
squared.
big dog.
Okay, now, look at
These
C
four?
and D. C and D have to be x squared first.
Yep.
C is at the origin, centered at the origin,
Number
which
1.
means it's a plane x squared.
Mhm.
So 1
Is C.
is C. And then 4 is D. So 1 is C, 2 is A, 3 is B, and 4 is D. Anybody have a question about that? Anybody get those all right before we talk
I was
about
3
them?
out of 4.
3 out of 4? I think get 3 out of 4.
I got one wrong after a race. I had A and D.
Okay.
So I was 2 out of 4.
Alright.
Shit. Damn.
Okay, now,
Yeah, I can do
we're gonna do a
better.
couple more here, and then we're gonna go to our practice
Yeah,
test. So,
Hey,
let's
watch
look
this.
at number 3, 3B. So number 3B, let's graph what we have. So 2, 3. Go ahead and plot these points, guys, and 2, -1. Now those, wait a minute. Those are the endpoints of the transverse axis. Doesn't that mean these are the vertices? Because isn't the transverse axis the one that determines the vertices? Okay, that tells me a couple things. What does that tell me? If these are the vertices, let's see, what was it, 2, 3, and 2 negative 1. What does that tell me about my equation? I'm going to write the equation of a hyperbola, and it's going to be just like the equation of an ellipse. It's something squared over something, this time minus something squared over something equals 1. What does this tell me, the fact that this is my transverse axis? Which letter is gonna come first in my equation? Y? I mean, yes, the letter Y. Why is it Y? Because it's opening up and down. So this is a Y, and this is an X. What else does it tell me? Well, if I had a box in here, wouldn't the center of the box be right there? Right in the middle of these two? So what point is right in the middle of 2, 3 and 2, negative 1?
2, 1.
2, 1. All right, pay attention. Would you agree the center's at 2, 1? So those, that 2 and that 1 are gonna go in my parentheses up there, right? But be careful. This is Y. It's not Y minus 2, it's Y minus 1, and X minus 2. The center is 2, 1, but that's an X and that's a Y. So make sure you're matching up your letters correctly. I didn't build a box, but if I did, I would count up 2 and down 2, which means under Y is 4. Now I have to look back at the problem. This is problem B. It says the conjugate axis is 6. So that means I would be counting 3 back and forth, which means under here is a 9. These aren't hard, there's just so much to remember. Let's try same section, number 3, or actually very back page. Let's try E. We're gonna do E and the F. So the transverse endpoints are at -2, -1, and 8. 8, -1. Now I know there's more stuff there, but I think if we just stop right here, there is a whole lot of information that gives us. These are the transverse axis endpoints, which means these are the vertices. What does that tell me about my equation? X is first. Okay. Doesn't it also tell me what my center is? Isn't my center gonna be the midpoint of that? What is right in the middle of -2 and 8? Well, you can either do the old finger thing, you know, like this, or you can add them. What's -2 plus 8? 6 divided by 2 is 3. So the center is at 3, -1. So I'm gonna come up here now. I put my center in. Remember, it's the center that goes in those parentheses. So that's gonna be X minus 3, Y plus 1. And then think about it here. How far is it from 3 to 8? counted back forward 5, which means under X must be a 25. Kids, all that came from just knowing the major axis. Now, what's gonna go under Y? Well, it tells me that the conjugate endpoints are at 3, 3. Okay, so wait a second. 3, 3, how far up do I have to count to get from here to 3, 3? Or how far down do I have to count to get to 3, -5? Count it up and down 4, which means under Y is a 16. All right, you and your partner try the last one. See if you can figure out what that equation looks like. Something squared over something minus something squared over something equals 1.
Partner, which one are we on? Opens vertical.
Jack, are you awake?
Yeah.
Come on, honey. Stay focused.
Vertical's up and down. So do I need to switch this? Yeah. So that comes up with so that'd be y minus 2 x plus 3. Wait, dear, what'd you get for in your parentheses? Y minus 2, and we're trying to figure out our x.
My question is,
Y plus 2, and then x minus 3.
so how are you supposed to get that?
X minus
How are you supposed to get these numbers Yeah, like for this one, so to get it, you have to add this.
Well, we were lucky. They gave us the center. And they told us that the transverse axis was 6 and that it opens vertically. So I counted up 3 and down 3. And it opens vertically. There we go. Does that make sense to everybody? Because of that, y will be first, so y minus 3, x plus 2. And because I counted up 3, under y is going to be 9. They tell me the conjugate axis is 10. So I counted back and forth 5, which tells me under x is going to be a 25. Okay. All right, that takes care of the notes. So let's get out our practice tests. I think I gave those to you last time, didn't I?
Yep.
So,
Make sure braces
that.
in. Don't
Don't give up.